Slips, trips, and falls can happen to anyone, anywhere, and in any workplace. From the office, to the production floor, to the loading dock, to the warehouse, and everywhere in between. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, slips, trips, and falls cause the majority of workplace accidents. The impact on the average worker can be significant. This can include things like lost wages, out-of-pocket expenses, physical pain, emotional distress, a temporary or permanent disability, and a reduced quality or even loss of life. The good news is OSHA believes many of these injuries and deaths can be prevented by following the regulations and recommended safe work practices. These requirements apply to all general industry employers and cover all walking-working surfaces such as floors, aisles, stairways, ladders, platforms, roofs, ramps, loading docks, and any other surface employees can walk on, work from, or use to gain access to a work area. In November 2016, OSHA issued a revised final rule on walking-working surfaces for general industry that better protects workers from slips, trips, and falls by requiring your employer to evaluate your workplace for slip, trip, and fall hazards, inspect walking-working surfaces and equipment on an ongoing basis, implement fall protection measures to address these hazards, and train you on how to recognize these hazards and how to correctly use fall protection systems and equipment. This program is designed to help you understand how you and your job responsibilities may be impacted by these requirements. Specifically, this program will help you recognize the impact of the Walking-Working Surfaces Standard and identify your own responsibilities in terms of hazard assessments, inspections, fall protection, and training. Your employer must conduct a hazard assessment of your workplace to identify the potential hazards that might cause slips, trips, and falls. If a hazard is found, first your employer will attempt to eliminate it. If that's not possible, they'll need to install things like guardrails, covers, safety nets, or ladder safety systems, or mark designated areas. If this is not sufficient, personal fall protection is required. So how does this impact you? Your employer may ask you to help identify, report, and eliminate slip, trip, and fall hazards. Even if you aren't asked to participate in the formal hazard assessments, you can impact safety in your workplace by being aware of your work environment and reporting any issues to your supervisor. Inspections are a key requirement in reducing or preventing slips, trips, and falls. An inspection is the activity of closely examining a workplace for hazardous conditions or regulatory violations. Inspections help your employer identify and correct problems before they cause any harm. Basically, if you use a surface to walk on, work on, or gain access to an area in your workplace, it must be inspected. Your employer is required to inspect all walking-working surfaces, including things like floors, aisles, and walkways, stairways, roofs, ladders, ramps, dock boards, and platforms. Your employer must conduct inspections of these things regularly and as necessary. OSHA says a regular inspection means your employer sets and follows a schedule for inspecting walking-working surfaces that is adequate enough to identify hazards. As necessary means inspections must be done when workplace conditions have changed since the last inspection. These inspections are not conducted on a fixed schedule. OSHA defines fall protection as any equipment, device, or system that prevents a worker from falling from an elevation or mitigates the effects of such a fall. Your employer is required to protect you from fall hazards along unprotected sides or edges that are 4 feet or more above a lower level. There are also set requirements for fall protection in specific situations, such as hoist areas, runways, areas above dangerous equipment, openings, holes, repair pits, fixed ladders, stairways, and roofs, just to name a few. Your employer will determine the appropriate fall protection method or system for your type of work operation. Employers now have more fall protection options under the revised final rule. This allows them to choose a fall protection system that best meets the needs of your workplace. OSHA says training is an effective way to protect workers from slips, trips, and falls, and one of the most critical steps employers can take to prevent injuries and fatalities. Employers are required to provide training that enables you to recognize the hazards of falling and the procedures you will need to follow to minimize these hazards. For example, the use of personal fall protection or proper ladder climbing techniques. In order to be effective and relevant, the training should be easy to understand and cover the necessary topics related to your job and work area. The training will be designed and conducted by a qualified person and will include information on how to recognize the fall hazards in your work area, how to properly minimize or eliminate those hazards, and how to correctly install, set up, inspect, operate, maintain, disassemble, and store the fall protection systems and equipment you use, like ladders, dock boards, designated areas, personal fall protection, and scaffolds. OSHA estimates these slip, trip, and fall requirements will prevent nearly 30 workplace fatalities and 6,000 lost workday injuries each year. Those are numbers we can all live with. By understanding how you and your job responsibilities may be impacted under the Walking-Working Surfaces standard and identifying your own responsibilities in recognizing slip, trip, and fall hazards, you'll help ensure a safer workplace.